Okay, good morning, class 4. So, today we're going to start with a new chapter, that is how plants survive. How do they survive? So, in this chapter, we will learn about different types of plants, whether it is terrestrial plant, aquatic plant, insectivorous plant, and non green plant, and what are the uses of plant. So, let's begin with this. So the plants can be found almost all over the earth. That's true. We can see different plants growing in different places like seashore, inside the sea, deserts, plains, and high snow-covered mountains. So look at the picture, look at the cactus plant and answer the question. So we have to answer the following questions. So how many leaves does it have? So it has no leaves. That means we have to write none or no leaves here. Okay, then what is the color of its stem? So it has a color green. Okay, and then which part do you think carries out photosynthesis for this plant? So you have to write stem. Okay, moving on. So types of plants. There are different types of plants such as terrestrial, aquatic, insectivorous, and non-green plants. So these different types so the first one is terrestrial plant. So plants that grow on the land are known as terrestrial plant. Land has different features such as plains, mountains, and deserts. Some parts of the land receive heavy rainfall, some moderate, and some very little. Large flat areas of land are called plains. Lands higher than plains are called mountains, and mountains are generally colder than plains. Dry land that receive very little rain are called deserts. We find different kinds of plants in different areas because plant needs to adapt to the natural condition of area to be able to survive there. For example, you will find a coconut tree in the desert because the desert receives very little rainfall. Let us study. Let us now study the features of plant found on land. So, the terrestrial found generally found in the uh, places like you know land and plain areas. So, and there are different lands depending upon them. They receive heavy where uh, they receive some areas receive a heavy rainfall where some area receive very little rainfall, and the places where there is heavy rainfall are colder than that as compared to the plain areas, and dry lands such as deserts receive a very little rainfall. So plant needs to adapt the natural condition that are area that are able to survive there. So they adapt to the uh, climate so that they would live. If you if you if you see in the right hand side, there is a word help. The meaning of adapt is to adjust a new living condition. Okay, so moving on. So the first category we have for the terrestrial plant is plants in plain. So plant that grows in the plain areas are categorized into two. So the plant in areas of less rainfall and plant in areas of heavy rainfall. So what happens is many of the trees can survive in the very hot climate and may shed most of their lives in autumn. For example, neem, peepal, gulmohar, ashok, shesham, and sal. So these are some of the examples of uh, plants which grows, okay, in plain areas where there is a less rainfall, and and plants in areas of heavy rainfall. These plants have leaves that remain green almost all year around and are called green evergreen trees. Rubber tree, teak tree, and are some of the examples of that grow in heavy rainfall. So, and the another one is here is a plant which grows only in areas of heavy rainfall. That will be your rubber tree, teak tree, okay, which survives uh, in the weather, and they also in the areas of a heavy rainfall, where there is a heavy rainfall. Moving on. So the next category of plant that grows on the land is plants on mountains. Trees growing on mountains and hilly areas, example pine and fir, are usually tall, straight, and cone shaped. These features allow the snow to easily slide off their branches. They are usually flowerless and have cones with their seeds inside them. The leaves of these trees are needle-like and have a waxy coating to prevent any damage from snow. So the plants which are found on the mountain areas are usually very high, tall, and straight, and have different cone-like shape. And why they because because they have a very unusual shape. That's why the snow easily slide off their branches. They are usually flowerless. Okay, they they have no flower to grown, and have cones with seeds inside them. So they have like cones, and inside there is a seeds. So they have one more feature, like the trees are like needle like and have a waxy coating to prevent any damages. Okay, after this we have plants in deserts. Only those plants that need very little water can survive in the desert, right? So because there is a shortage of water in the desert, that's why they need a very little water to survive. Examples are cactus, babul, and date palms commonly grow here. These plants have developed certain features that help them to survive in the severe conditions of the deserts. So they have a special features in order to survive in that very hot climate as well as waterless area. To save the water, desert plants have the following features. They do not have any leaves or have very few of them. Photosynthesis is thus carried out by the green stem. So if they do not have any leaves on them, so how do they prepare their food, or how do they perform the chlorophyll and photosynthesis? The question is, they if you look at them, okay, they store water in the stems and become fleshy. Most plants have spines and thorns which further reduce loss of water. So these are three main features of the plants that grow in the desert areas. Moving on. So the next category of plant which we can find in the land is a plant in swamps. So what is actually a swamp? Swamp have a very sticky soil and which contains lots of water. It becomes very difficult for plants to grow here because their roots cannot breathe. Hence, some of the plants that grow here have roots that grow above the soil. Such roots are called breathing roots because they take in air and help the plant to breathe. They also absorb water and minerals required for photosynthesis. So in these areas like swamp, the roots usually can be seen. Okay, so because the breathing roots stick out of water and have pores or holes in them for exchange of gases, and they also absorb water and minerals for photosynthesis. Okay, so the next plant we can see on the land is the plant on sea coast, or we can say sea area. Coconut trees grows in a coastal area because they can survive in salty water and prefer areas of high rainfall. The seeds of such plants are carried off far away places by water. So uh, the coconut tree is the only tree which can survive in the coastal area because it can survive in salty water and prefer areas of heavy rainfall. Okay, high rainfall. And the seeds are also carried away by the seawater so that it can grow on another coastal area as well. Moving on, so the next thing we have here is, let's remember, circle the odd one out and give a reason for your choice. So the first one is palms, coconut tree, mountains and deserts. So coconut tree is an odd one here, and you have to give reason for that also. So I have written here, because it is found on a coastal area. And question number 2, people, cactus, gulmohar and sesame. So cactus is the odd one here. Why? Because it is found in the desert area. And question number 3, rubber tree, heavy rainfall, teak and pine. I have circled pine. So reason for that is because it is found in mountain and hilly areas. Then we have question 4, fir, cactus, bubble and kicker. So we have to circle the odd one, that is fir, and the reason for that is because they are tall, straight and cone shaped. Okay. Then we have question 5. So the sticky soil, sandy soil, breathing roots and swamps. So you have to circle the sandy soil, and you have to write the reason, because it contains very little water. So moving on, then we have another type of plant which is called aquatic plants. By the name itself, it is clearly mentioned here, aquatic. Okay, the plants that grow in water are known as aquatic plants. There are three types: floating, fixed and underwater plant. So the first one, floating plant. A stem of floating plants are light and spongy so that they can float on water. Duckweed and water hyacinth are examples of floating plant. So they have a light and spongy so that they can float on the water. They usually uh, uh, they usually found on the water, above the water. Okay, and the next plant we have is fixed plant. These plants have their roots fixed to the bottom of the pond. They have thin, long and hollow stems to reach out the surface of the water. Leaves of these plants are broad and flat with waxy coating on their surface to prevent them from rotting. Water lily and lotus are some examples of fixed plant. So their roots are fixed on the bottom of the pond, okay, or the water. They have very thin, long and hollow stem to reach out the surface of the water. Okay, they are very long, and these plants are usually very broad and flat with waxy coating on the surface to prevent the rotting, so that they don't rotten their tree. And lotus lily, water lily are some examples of fixed plant. Then we have underwater plants. So underwater plants grow under the water surface and have thin and narrow leaves without any stomata. Their leaves absorb the gases dissolved in water directly through their surface. Tape grass and poundweed are examples of underwater plants. So they usually grow under the water surface and have a thin and narrow leaves, and the leaves absorb gases which are dissolved in the water directly through their surface. And pondweed, tape grass are some examples of underwater plants. So the next category we have is next type of plant. So the next category we have is insectivorous plant. Some plants are carnivores in nature. Their leaves are modified to trap insects and hence they are known as insectivorous plants. Venus flytrap and pitcher plant are examples of insectivorous plant. Venus flytrap has leaves that are like boxes with hinges. They have stiff hair like structures on the inside of the leaf. When the insect touches the hair, the leaf snaps and shut, trapping the creature inside. So as you can see on the left hand side, there is a picture of a Venus flytrap. Okay, whenever the insects come and touches the stiff hair like structure, it suddenly closes and traps the insect and kills it. Okay, then we have a picture of a pitcher plant. Pitcher plant leaves are in the form of container or pitcher with a lid to cover the mouth of the pitcher. When the insect lands on the edge of the pitcher, it slips and fall into it. The lid closes and trapping the insect inside. Segregation from the pitcher helps to digest the trapped insect. So whenever the insect lands on the leaves of that pitcher plant, that leads the insect fall into that pitcher plant's mouth and cover, and the lid of that pitcher plant will closes the trap closes by trapping the insect inside. Okay, so moving on, and the next type of plant is called non-green plant. There are many kind of non-green plants, okay, which are not in whose colors are not in green, and plants such as Indian pine and coral root are non-green plants because they do not have any chlorophyll. Plants that cannot make their own food and absorb nutrients from the dead plants and animals are called saprophytic plants. So the non-green plants are not they do not it is a plant where they cannot prepare their own food and absorb the required nutrients and minerals from the dead plant or animals. So they are called saprophytic plants. Okay, so that's all for now. We're gonna do our remaining topics and begin our exercise in the next class. Thank you.